Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Pajama Story Time here at BB Library. My name is Nancy Sheehan. We're going to be doing this for the entire month of April. Let's see, and we're going to start with our Open Shut Them song, the way we usually do for our story time. And so we put our hands together and we open and close them like a book. And then we're going to clap. And we're going to creep them from our bellies all the way up to this part of our body, which is called our chin. We're going to open up our mouths, but you're not going to let your fingers in. We're going to put them behind your back. Okay, so let's try it all together. Open, shut them, give a little clap, clap, clap. Open, shut them, lay them in your lap, lap, lap. Creep them, creep them, creep them, creep them right up to your chin, chin, chin. Open up your little mouth, but do not let them in. Welcome, everybody. So some of you may have heard already that this month, April, is National Poetry Month. And in honor of National Poetry Month, I found a poem that I thought everybody might enjoy because I happen to know that a lot of you happen to like pizza. Well, I think if you like pizza, then you would enjoy this poem from David Canzoneri and Bill Martin Jr. called Let There Be Pizza on Earth. And this is a good poem to sing. So here goes. Let there be pizza on earth, and let it be eaten by me. Let there be pizza on earth as far as the eye can see, with ham and pepperoni, mozzarella cheese, add some mushrooms and olives, but hold the anchovies, please. Let pizza be eaten by me. Let this be the moment now. With every bite I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each pizza and eat each pizza in perfect ecstasy. Let there be pizza on earth, and let it be eaten by me. So, happy National Poetry Month. We'll have other poems later in the evening. Now, some of you may already know the story of the Three Little Pigs. And I have a version of the Three Little Pigs that is a little different. So if you recall the story of the Three Little Pigs, there were three little pigs who wanted to go out on their own and have their fortune. And so they each made a house. One made a house out of straw, one made a house out of sticks, and one made a house out of bricks. And the big bad wolf tried to eat each of these pigs and huffed and puffed and blew their house down. But in this version of the Three Little Pigs, some really weird things happened to these little pigs. So we're going to read this version of the Three Little Pigs by one of my favorite authors, David Wiesner. And so it begins. Once upon a time, there were three little pigs who went out in the world to seek their fortune. The first pig decided to build a house, and he built it out of straw. Along came a wolf. Who knocked at the door and said, little pig, let me in." And the pig answered, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. So I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in, said the wolf. And so the wolf huffed and he puffed and he blew the house in. Hey! He blew me out of the story! Ate the pig up. Where'd that pig go? That pig got blown out of the story. What's going to happen next? Now the second pig built his house out of sticks. Along came the wolf, who knocked on the door and said, little pig, let me come in. And the pig answered, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. And the wolf said, then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. Come on, it's safe out here. So the wolf huffed and he puffed and he blew the house in and he ate the pig up. They're not there. They're not there. Those pigs left. So the third pig built his house out of bricks. Wow. Why didn't you two get eaten up? We got away from that wolf for good. Now we have room to move. Watch this. Whoops. Let's explore this place. Okay, just let me fold this up. Whee! Are they all there? Let's count. 1, 2, 3. 3 pigs, they're all there. Uh-oh. Oof. Hey, over here. What's that? I think someone's out there. Hey, come help us with this. Hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon. The little dog laughed to see such sport, and the dish ran away with the spoon. Let's get out of here. What? Where are we? Hey, this one, come on. Hey, how about in here? These pigs are sure getting around. Okay, hold it still. Okay. High on a hill, there lived a great dragon who stood guard over a rose made of the purest gold. The king was determined to own this treasure, so he sent his eldest son to slay the dragon and bring back the golden rose. Psst, come with us! Hurry! The prince spurred his steed to the mountain top, drew his sword, and slew the mighty dragon. Oh, many thanks for rescuing me, O brave and noble swine. Don't mention it. Look who's here. Welcome. Hey, diddle diddle. Now what? Find something? What's this? Well, it's my place. Notice the brickwork. I did it myself. A fine castle, methinks. Yes, it's very nice. Good idea. We just have to pick these up. Here we go. Along came a wolf, who knocked at the door and said, little pig, let me in. And the pig answered, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. And the wolf said, then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. And the wolf huffed and he puffed, and but no matter how he could not blow the, oh God, that's enough. Oh, come inside, everyone. Soup's on. I think we're going to like it here. And they all lived happily ever after. And that is the very fractured fairy tale and roaming story of these three little pigs by David Wiesner. Our next story is an old favorite. And it's a little long because it starts all the way over in Africa. And it ends up over here in America. And you may already know or be familiar with this character. His name is Curious George. So tonight we're going to read the original Curious George by A.J. Ray. And both of these books, by the way, are brought to us free of permissions by Houghton Mifflin Publishing. And so here is the story of Curious George. This is George. He lived in Africa. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. One day George saw a man. He had on a large yellow straw hat. The man saw George too. What a nice little monkey, he thought. I would like to take him home with me. He put his hat on the ground, and of course George was curious. He came down from the tree to look at the large yellow hat. The hat had been on the man's head. George thought it would be nice to have it on his own head, so he picked it up and put it on. The hat covered George's head. He couldn't see. The man picked him up quickly and popped him into a bag. George was caught. The man with the big yellow hat put George into a little boat, and the sailor rowed them both across the water to a big ship. George was sad, but he was still a little curious. On the big ship, things began to happen. The man took off the bag. George sat on a little stool, and the man said, George, I am going to take you to a big zoo in the big city. You will like it there. Now run along and play. Don't get into trouble. George promised to be good, but it was easy for a little monkey to forget. On the deck, he found some seagulls. He wondered how they could fly. He was very curious, but finally he had to try. It looked easy, but oh, what happened? First, this, and then this. Where is George? The sailors looked and looked. At last they saw him struggling in the water and almost all tired out. Man overboard, the sailors cried as they threw him a life belt. George caught it and held on. At last he was safe on board. After that, George was more careful to be a good monkey until at last the long trip was over. George said goodbye to the kind sailors, and he and the man with the yellow hat walked off the ship onto the shore and on into the city to the man's house. After a good meal and a good pipe, George felt very tired. He crawled into bed and fell asleep at once. The next morning, the man telephoned the zoo. George watched him. He was fascinated. Then the man went away. George was curious. He wanted to telephone too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, what fun! Ding-a-ling-a-ling! George had telephoned the fire station. The firemen rushed to the telephone. Hello, hello, they said, but there was no answer. Then they looked for the signal on the big map that showed where the telephone call had come from. They didn't know it was George. They thought it was a real fire. Hurry, hurry, hurry! The firemen jumped onto the fire engines and onto the hook and ladders. Ding dong, ding dong. Everyone out of the way! Hurry, hurry, hurry! The firemen rushed into the house. They opened the door. No fire. Only a naughty little monkey. Catch him, they cried. George tried to run away. He almost did, but he got caught in the telephone wire and a thin fireman caught one arm and a fat fireman caught the other. You fooled the fire department, they said. We will have to shut you up or you can't do any more harm. They took him away and shut him in a prison. George wanted to get out. He climbed up to the window to try the bars. And just then, the watchman came in. He got on the wooden bed to catch George, but he was too big and heavy. The bed tipped up. The watchman fell over. And quick as lightning, George ran through the open door. He hurried through the building and out onto the roof, and then he was lucky to be a monkey. Out he walked onto the telephone wires. Quickly and quietly, over the guard's head, George walked away. He was free. Down in the street, outside the prison wall, stood a balloon man. A little girl bought a balloon for her brother. George watched. He was curious again. He felt he must have a bright red balloon. He reached over and tried to help himself, But instead of one balloon, the whole bunch broke loose. And in an instant, the wind whisked all of them away, and with them went George, holding tight with both hands. Up, up he sailed, higher and higher. The houses looked like toy houses, and the people like dolls. George was frightened. He held on very tight. At first, the wind blew in great gusts. Then it quieted. Finally, it stopped blowing altogether. George was very tired. Down, down he went, bump, onto the top of a traffic light. Everyone was surprised. Traffic got all mixed up. George didn't know what to do. And then he heard someone call, "George!" He looked down and saw his friend, the man with the big yellow hat. George was very happy. The man was happy too. George slid down the post, and the man with the big yellow hat put him under his arm. Then he paid the balloon man for all the balloons, and then George and the man climbed into the car, and at last, away they went. To the zoo. What a nice place for George to live. And that is the story of Curious George. And that is the story that started all of the Curious George stories by H.A. Rey. So I have one more story, one more poem, again for our National Poetry Month, before we leave for the night and do our goodbye song. But this one is called I Keep 3 Wishes Ready by Annette Wynne. I keep 3 wishes ready, lest I should chance to meet any day a fairy coming down the street. I'd hate to stammer or have to think them out, for it's very hard to think things up when a fairy is about. And I'd hate to lose my wishes, for fairies fly away. And perhaps I'd never have the chance on any other day. So I keep 3 wishes ready, lest I should chance to meet any day a fairy coming down the street. So if you had a fairy who would grant you 3 wishes, what do you think they would be? You might want to practice them ahead, just so that when you meet that fairy, you'll be ready too. And so for our last song tonight, we're going to say goodbye to our friends, and we're going to do it with the signs. And so our sign for goodbye is goodbye, just like that. And friends is you hook your two pointer fingers one way, then the other, and that's the sign for friends. And then we're going to say goodbye because it's time. So to indicate that it's time, we tap on our wrist, just like we're tapping on our iWatch or our Fitbit. Okay? So it's time to say goodbye. So when we say, we point to our lips to show that we're saying. Okay? And so our song goes like this. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. It's time to say goodbye. We'll see you next Wednesday at 6:30. Good night, everybody.